I'll try not to make this super long. I just wanted to expand and expound on a couple of thoughts from the last video, and a couple comments were left that might be helpful in our research, so I wanted to use those as well and dig into them just real quickly. As always, all information shared is per the Fair Use Act of 1976. This is not medical advice. This is not legal advice. For such counsel, you should seek appropriate professional assistance. And I think that's it. That should be the last of them. All right. Good morning, guys. So parts of this might get a little fringe or a little strange, but I'm going to do my best to keep this as basic as possible in an effort to help as many people from whatever paradigm hopefully understand what we might be saying. I don't want to make any definitive remarks at this time. Yes, I do pray every day. I meditate on specific questions that I have for the Lord about things that are happening in my life, the universe, publicly, spiritual matters, and I do believe that I receive answers, and I try to use that spiritual discernment to help other people see what's happening. Please don't thank me. It is the least I can do to help make right some of the wrongs that I have done while I've been here. And we are each, every one of us, accountable, and I'm starting to wonder if any of us actually gets out of here until we all understand what accountability means. Because yes, it is a personal, one-on-one meaning, but it is also, we have to be accountable for leading others astray. Yes, other people make choices to end up in their situations most of the times. Some people don't have that choice. As Christ followers or individualist or independent thinkers, we know that a well taken care of and healthy individual makes for a healthier, well-balanced family, and that ripples out to the community. So that can only be a good thing when we help one another. Most of us also see at this point what goes around does indeed come around. I am in a position that a loved one was in when I was at the helm, and now I'm in their position, being humbled and learning what it was like to be the one who was having a hard time and struggling. And now that person is on top of the world, but they have not had their fall yet. And according to the consequences for our actions or justice, some people call that karma. Again, that's a counterfeit slang term for something that God already instilled in natural law. These are what we have to look at here, because right now the good guys and the bad guys are wearing the same uniforms, and they look very closely similar. They look very much alike in their images that we see physically upon them. The costumes that they wear, whether it be police, EMTs, firemen, military, the good guys and the bad guys are all wearing those costumes. There are very specific, very obvious agendas going forward in these times, and what is sad is people have forgotten that the television and the screens don't always speak truth to us. They are here to, in fact, influence us and sway us to do things that we probably wouldn't normally otherwise do if we did not have that influence or pressure put upon us. So again, we have to be accountable for ourselves, our own actions, but also what we promote in others. And because of that, I'm going to speak from an angle which may surprise a lot of people. I've talked about my personal testimony, about how I experienced pressure to vote. I do not vote. I feel that it is spiritual bondage. I don't judge anyone else for doing it. I understand you feel it is your public or your societal obligation. I don't hold anything against anyone who does that. In fact, maybe you are doing better than I am. I prefer not to get involved because when your side loses, for example, the baby ending debate, the word I'm going for there, when you delete a child in your womb, just the fact that you enter that debate, let's say you lose your side, whatever your side that you voted for may be, you're then agreeing to be the loser and to go along with whatever the majority rules on. Do you see what I'm saying? Just by participating, you're agreeing that if you're the loser, if your side loses, that you'll go along with whomever or whatever agenda wins. This is all spiritual, and people have to look at the reasons. Why do you think they push you to vote? Why do you think they push gun ownership? And it's a lot of, reverse psychology, like you use with a child. They feel like, okay, well, we'll tell them that this is forbidden and that they shouldn't have it and it's not good for them, so they'll seek it out more. And they know that you listen to celebrities. They know that you see those faces everywhere, so they use their faces to sell things to you, whether it be product or ideas and concepts. They are sold to you. And not only are these agendas being instilled upon the public and being used to influence and sway the public, but you're also, we're paying for our own brainwashing, basically. Now, I'm not saying that we're stupid. I'm not saying you're stupid, so don't shut the video off or start screaming at me there. Well, I'm not brainwashed. Hold up. Subliminals work on your subconscious. For whatever reason, that became glaringly obvious to me in 2018 when these individuals will show you what they're going to do to you. They will lay it out in some way that your subconscious can grab onto it. But your conscious mind, doesn't know what to do with that information, right? It just goes to the back burner. And by the time you figure out, holy cow, these people have bad intent for me, you're already in the situation and it might be too late to extricate yourself. Again, I'm setting things up here because we're going to look at this from an alternate angle, and it might make a lot of you mad. You might initially have that knee-jerk reaction and want to scream at the screen or turn me off. I'm going to ask you to just listen to my entire thought here, though, and the entire concept that I'm going to lay out before you. I told you back in 2017 I wouldn't lie to you. I knew that I deleted 4 years worth of content. It got rid of over 2,000 subs. I'm okay with that. But I hope the people who stayed here remember that I spent time building trust, and I told very personal parts of my testimony. And I dealt with trafficking, although I didn't know what it was. I didn't even know the real definition for it until I thought it was just the selling of people, which is not far from the truth, but it's more involved and complex than that. And sometimes the person doesn't even know they're allowing it to happen to them. And again, I feel like this place operates a lot on consent. We can't assume that just because somebody tells us something that it's true. And I'm seeing this is the biggest problem, is that there is no checks and balances anymore. When somebody speaks something, the public just assumes that it's true. DNA doesn't lie. This guy's the criminal. We got to let this guy go. Well, everybody just assumes it's true. That's the bad guy. That's the guy we want to lynch next, or we want to end or delete from society, right? Because they tell you, hey, this is the DNA we found. This person is guilty. Although they say they're innocent, everyone in jail says they're innocent, right? So the public believes it because there's science behind it, right? Scientism, it's the one religion almost everyone agrees on. One world religion. And DNA is a big push for that. And the LDS Church has big investment in DNA and genealogy and family trees. And they are baptizing the dead. We're going to look at a spiritual angle of where this is all coming from. But again, I'm going to lay this out real simple for you. What is a honey trap? Now remember, we are in a time that is inverted. Everything is upside down. The good guys are more than likely the bad guys. The bad guys are more than likely the good guys. The ones who are being presented to you in that way, okay? I'm not talking about your own spiritual discernment. I'm talking about the media and even your own smaller community on a community level. This is real. It is happening. This was planned for a long time. Now, in the beginning of my testimony, I was basically tested. Testing equals testimony. Almost every person I knew spent time with me, said very specific things to me to test my own reaction or response, trying to figure out if I would go along with or comply with this current agenda that's happening now. Most of us TIs, if you think back, that happened to you as well. You had some kickoff event, there was a lot of people around you, and then suddenly you're abandoned and left to your own devices. Why did that happen? I like to say it's because we're sealed with God's seal. And I'm going to get into that too, although I don't know if I'll do it in this video. Remind me to talk about the ash trees and the sealing of God's people, because that's important. It goes along with scripture. But anyway, when this all began, people around me basically tested me and spent time with me and talked about me about very specific parts of these agendas. And trafficking was a big part of it, to see how I felt about children, and that knowing what I was afraid of was really important. They wanted to know what scared me. And if they couldn't figure out what scared me, they wanted to know what made me angry, because they want us to be in such a heightened emotional state that we are blinded. Our spiritual discernment, listen to me now, follow me, is blinded. That we just want justice, that we're so thirsty for justice to get at these people who hurt children, that the second they hold up a villain, we don't even ask if it's true, we'll just go after that villain. You've seen it in the Frankenstein stories. This tale is as old as time. They keep doing the same things over and over again, and most oftentimes the public allows them to get away with it. I showed you this with the case of Mary Typhoid Mary as well. How they isolated her, how they secluded her, how they quarantined her just to ensure that her discernment and being able to see what was truly happening in that time would not be able to be spoken aloud to anyone else. And if it was spoken aloud to anyone else, they would think she was crazy. Now, that's a big part of this, because you have a lot of people today, and here's another thing that I see coming up a lot, especially in Reddit posts. And Reddit is scary, like it really is. If you go over there and you see how people are talking, we better pray that those are all bots, because if those are real individuals walking amongst us, we are in some serious trouble here. Because people literally are just looking for reasons to end people. Now, again, spiritually speaking, anyone that is taken over by the demonic cannot do this unless we give them legal grounds and legal rights. The second you enter a fight, even if you're entering a gunfight with a knife, for example, and this is rhetorical, I'm a pacifist, I'm not promoting violence, this is kind of a thought experiment, okay? That's how we'll classify this for now. If you walk into a gunfight with a knife, you're still liable if you cause harm, and you're still partly liable if harm is caused to you because you walked into that fray knowing that it was a gunfight, but you took a knife, right? You were willing. Your free will was involved. So keep all this in mind when I explain what I think is happening. You're not going to like this. Most people will shut me off. And this is probably what's going to make people very, very angry at people like me. And I can see it happening, and I can see the lynches happening, and I can see them reopening the asylums, calling religious people the ones who are mentally disabled or mentally defunct at this point in time. And I can see them throwing independent thinkers, non-compliers, and Christians and Muslims into insane asylums again. I see that happening. If you look at all the big YouTube channels, the Explore With Us channels, they're all talking about the asylums and what happened in them. These are agendas. They're trying to work at people's subconscious mind so that they don't have to do anything. And they have to have legal rights. This is why violence and civil war hasn't broken out yet, because most people of mankind are not murderers. That is not a part of everyone's DNA, if you will, or physiology. You see that with Cain and Abel. One of them was a murderer, the other was not. And I don't think that he was rejected because he gave vegetables. I think, if anything, if that was the true God, he was rejected because he gave fruit that had already fallen and was on the ground. You don't give bruised fruit that from the ground that is as a sacrifice. once it falls off the tree, it's already considered to be in the period of decay and dying. So I just wanted to say that. So let's look at this real quick. Now remember, we are in a time of reversal, of inversion, okay, of reverse causality. We were one of the first channels to broach that topic as well. And I told you myself about how I was trafficked, and I didn't even know the true definition of the word at that time, and how I was violated in my own home. They're doing these things on purpose because they want us in a certain lane when all this goes down, and they want people to be compliant with it. In espionage terminology, honeypot and honey trap are terms for an operational practice involving the use of a covert agent, usually a female, to create a sensual or romantic relationship to compromise, usually a male target. Hold. Strong stop there. So basically, this is entrapment, but it's a very specific kind of entrapment. Oftentimes, they will refer to things on the deep or dark web as honey traps when there is underage images and people involved, okay? So this has everything to do with minors, the age of consent, and the selling of minors, okay? So usually this is used in a quote-unquote good way or with good intent to trap bad guys. Follow me here. This is what they usually do to trap bad guys. However, I know that when all this went down and I was going through my testing, one of the things they approached me about was voting. And they very strongly tried to sway me and persuade me into voting, and they wanted me to vote for Trump. Why, I don't know. But why does somebody else care who I vote for? Me specifically, what do they care? What does one vote matter? It doesn't matter. It wasn't about my vote per se. It was about me getting involved, therefore consenting to the process. And I already told you what I think has happened to people in this time. I believe that whoever they sign off on, for example, if you voted for Biden, everything he's fumbling around doing right now, you are partly responsible because you signed your John Hancock, your name, under his name. He is above you in the hierarchy. He is your boss, your overlord, your current master, whatever you want to call it. And again, I'm not judging people for voting. Most people don't understand these concepts, and I'm not being patronizing or condescending there. The only reason I understand it is through God's grace. I had no idea. All I knew is that in my gut, it felt wrong. I was not presented with why it was wrong until God started bringing me all these revelations in 2017. But I had to humble myself. I had to sit down, get on my knees, and pretty much say, okay, I don't know what's going on here. I'm blinded. Can you please help me? And I know it's been a long time since I talked to you, but I don't know where else to turn. And lo and behold, God did help me to be able to see these things. So now let's look at something else. I'm a big proponent of traffickers of all kinds meeting justice for their crimes, but also being rehabilitated if possible. And the minors obviously having extensive, proper therapy with people who actually care, not people, again, who are trying to meet an agenda. The psychology industry, every industry is involved in this right now. There are people in their club. Now, if it is Freemasonic, I don't know, but a lot of people are pointing fingers at that group. I will just say that there's conflicting information. When you're outside of a group, you have people that say this is happening. You have people that say that is happening. You have people that say it's good. You have people that say it's bad. I know as a Catholic, there are a lot of people that point fingers from the outside, but if you weren't raised that way, you don't know the intent behind what we're doing, right? Now, I don't kiss statues or do any of that. But I will look at a picture of Mary or a picture of the angels before I pray or as I'm meditating on a specific question for God to get my mind in a higher mindset. Art, the Renaissance age, those things are good for our spiritual mindset and our spiritual evolution, aka our spiritual ascension, when we physically and spiritually get lighter and get a light body, right? All of these things, all of these words have meaning that are being used, and we have to be very careful. Now, this man is being presented as a hero. Of course, I really liked him in The Passion. I've seen interviews he's done since. I really appreciated everything he had to say. Now, this is where things might get a little weird. In 2018, my first impression of things that had happened, because they had changed so quickly, and most of you know this, but the extensive videos I did on this were lives, so they are gone. If you want to do lives again about the eclipses and what I think happened, and about a possible secret spiritual rapture, we can talk about just that in a series of videos. Right now, I'm just going to reference that, okay? Most of you know what I'm talking about. Not all of you do. I'll just say that in 2018, things changed for me personally overnight. There was a lead into it, and I didn't realize what was happening, like I said. But I did know, as a woman, as a mother, and as a wife, that my household, that my family had changed pretty much overnight. Now, were they always like that and they just took off the masks, right? Because remember, everything's in reverse. Everybody put on a mask, but were they actually taking them off? Follow me now, because this could, I do have more information about masks too that we're going to look at. Though not in this video, but it might be tonight or tomorrow morning, because it will be a little fun, but it will be also informative, and we'll be looking at things again from a little different perspective, from a different angle in the spectrum of light that we're in. So, of course, I liked him in The Passion. I never thought he was a great speaker, but I always thought the things he said were his own. I didn't realize in some of his greatest speeches, he is quoting popes. Now remember, this man is an actor, so let's separate our emotional feelings for his image from our analytical mindset. Analytical means we are going to analyze him as a person, as a character on the screen. We're not going to say we know him personally, because we do not, but we are going to remove our emotions from it. He is not Jesus Christ. He just played Jesus Christ. This is important to remember. Again, people get things confused with the screen, and in these times, most people don't understand that we need to be asking questions. First and foremost, when you are told something, no matter where the source is, you have to question, is this true or not? You don't just take the information as truth and run with it. That's a big, big problem that we have today. And when Trump said fake news, he literally meant all news. And I'm so glad to see that that's passing around finally, too. Again, that's something that was started on this original channel when we first started doing live streams. We talked about all news being fake news, not just a little bit. They will tell you the truth. Trump said, "You knew I was a snake when you let me in." We cannot look at any man as being our savior. Do God's people work here? Absolutely. Does God lift people and raise people up? Absolutely. But is that what's happening now? I'm not certain. My concern is this. The Antichrist is going to be a very charming and a very persuasive individual. Okay? Understand that the Antichrist is going to look like a hero, even to most professing Christians. What do I mean by professing Christians? People who say they are Christian, but truly in their heart and in their lifestyle are not walking the walk of Christ. Okay, they're not being firm. They're not standing for truth. They're just going along with the flow. Okay, please understand this. Most professing Christians will be fooled by the Antichrist, because he will seem like a hero. People will love him. They will adore him. There probably won't be a vote. They will just instill him in this seat above people in nations. So understand that first and foremost. This person allegedly comes out of nowhere, okay? Now, he or she might have connections to other people and other families, but allegedly they kind of come out of nowhere. No one expected this, yada, yada, yada. All right? And we also need to understand that a head injury, we are told in the Bible that the AC receives a head injury and has a miraculous resurrection. Head injury could also be symbolic for an injury to one's pride. What was injured when Trump lost the election? His pride. Now, I have 3 people that I personally think and have thought for a lot of years that are in the running for the AC. But I believe there will be 5 men or women. There will be a group of 5. You'll have the false prophet, you'll have the beast, you'll have the actual antichrist. There will probably be a woman in the mix. You'll have the false prophet. I think there's going to be 5 because we're seeing the number 5 a lot. 5 Below, that store was new, started popping up out of nowhere. 5G. 5G is what? 5 Guys. You have that shop that opened up not too long ago that went franchised. So we have all these. Again, I know it's weird. I'm looking at symbols here though, and that's how the algorithm of reality works. For whatever reason, there are patterns and loops. What we need to do, though, as free thinking individuals is to break out of these patterns of bad behavior and bad thinking and just altogether an inversion in our own spirits. So the Antichrist is going to be charming. People will love him or her. The people that I have personally in the running right now are Trump, Elon Musk, someone from the royal family. Now, there is a disclaimer that goes along with this. Underneath this, there would be an asterisk. I do not believe that these people that they show us, Trump, Musk especially, I do not believe that they are the actual individuals. I think those are basically actors playing a part. They're like avatars so that these elitist people, we'll call them elites because that's what everyone else calls them, okay? I call them L-eats, right? E-L means angel. Elon Musk, L. I don't believe he is the actual person. What do I mean by this? I believe he's a paid actor or a model. Now think about it. If you had a lot of money, would you want people knowing what you look like? And everywhere you go, you would never have peace. You couldn't do anything from grocery shopping to driving down the road, parking your own car, walking along on the beach. Think of what a red herring is. What's a red herring? Who knows? A red herring is when you, and it goes along with honeypot, you throw out bait for a group of people or for a person so that they don't actually see the real, true truth of whatever is happening at that moment. I think the people that they show us are red herrings. That way, these elitists, number one, can walk around with total anonymity. They can do whatever they want, just like a regular person. They have more freedom that way. They don't have anyone following them that way. They can do their little secret things because nobody truly knows who they are, what they look like, or where they live. That's also a safety measure. Think about it, folks. If you're doing things that are abominations, and on the off chance that someone would catch you, because yes, you're full of pride, you don't think you'll ever get caught. And that's what gets you caught, is that attitude, by the way. Please think about this. I know this is getting deep and most people will be like, what is she going on about? I do not think that the people they show us, this is why the Antichrist is literally a nobody. Because the images that we see aren't the real people involved in these things. Think about it. If you're doing heinous acts and you're committing atrocities and you're doing ritualistic activities with other people, maybe having group sensual activities, if you know what I mean. If the rumors are true of Eyes Wide Shut. If you have someone out there playing the part of you like an actor, you can get away with these things because nobody knows what you look like. You'll have no paparazzi following you, no reporters following you. And if, on the off chance that people find out that, quote unquote, you are responsible for these things, when they come to lynch you or grab you for justice, they're going to grab your actor, not you. So when they say that this person is going to jail for a long time, who knows? Who knows what's behind the jail walls? You gotta make an appointment just to have, make a visit. You gotta sign in. You gotta get buzzed in. They tell you can only visit on certain days. Who knows if these people actually go to jail and are there all the time? Who knows that they don't just, like Charles Manson, for example, he was a patsy. Who knows sometimes if he didn't just show up at the jail to do the interviews, and then they'd take him out the back way, and he'd be on about his business, living his life somewhere else in seclusion. I know that's taking it a little far to extremes, but this is what we need to understand. Nothing we're seeing on the screens is true. I am all for traffickers and bad guys getting caught. Believe me, I want nothing more. I want justice for what's happened to me and my children in my own small, once beautiful community. That's why I've stayed here. God told me to be the buffer, to stand in the gap. If I have to take abuse just so these people have someone to abuse, because if I leave, and if you grew up in an abusive situation, you know this, right? I was the oldest of so many children, but I was also a stepchild. I knew that when I left, nobody else would pay for my mistakes because they weren't from the same father and they were already treated differently. Do you see what I mean? But I know that if I leave my children, I know that the second I leave, because of the pecking order and the totem pole, one of them will be up for abuse. Because these people are just that way. They always want to have somebody to suck their loosh out of, right? To suck the life essence from, to hijack their energy, so to speak. And I'm not getting new age. I mean this very literally. So I love nothing more. You know, I've done a lot of videos about trafficking and about how organized crime is what's running things here in America, and how cartels and trafficking fall under that header of organized crime. And where does the organized crime but in our own political arenas? Okay? Nobody wants these guys to get caught more than me, but there's something wrong happening. And I showed you. He was already not the best speaker, but now look at him. Look how he appears, okay? Now let's look at him currently. It's almost like that's a fake look of distress, which I know he's acting there, but just follow me. The blonde hair. Kanye did the blonde hair after he visited Trump, came out literally of Trump Towers with blonde hair. We know that for ages, whether it's something in the spirit or it's literally a communication that these elitists do, when the hair goes blonde, that usually means they have some type of handler at that point. Now, I know they say he did it for the role, but look back. Who else did the blonde hair? Kanye did the blonde hair, right? Right when he came out of Trump Towers. They're doing it now with Joan is Awful and the brown hair and the blonde, which I've done for years, and I'm still freaked out by that, to be perfectly honest with you. All right, so somebody said that his trainer was the same person as H0ney, that it was H0ney's handler, that somebody commented, Tamara, one of our longtime friends of the channel, she commented that H0ney, Kanye's trainer, had threatened to put him back in the mental institution, okay? And Kanye was very open about this. He's outing these people. I've done the same thing. The second the light is on you, if you start outing them, they're not going to do anything because they hate exposure more than anything. That's another reason I say they have these avatar-like people walking around pretending to be them. All right? We have to understand these things. We have to be wise. We have to, and this is the hard thing, is when you're not a criminal, you don't think like a criminal, okay? I'm not a criminal, so a lot of these things escape me. I don't know why a lot of these things are done. So I have to rely on my spiritual vision and my spiritual discernment. I have to rely on God to lead me to these truths. Now, there was something I didn't like in here because I was trying to see who his trainer was and if it was mentioned. All right? I don't like how arrogant he's coming off lately. He never used to be that way, and he's having a real problem speaking publicly right now. His interview with Jordan Maxwell was one of the worst interviews I've ever seen. I don't know if he was reading or what happened there, but I'm going to tell you again, that touches base with my testimony. But let me show you this first. Okay, so this gets into his history and how he got into the business through basketball and playing hoops every day. But he doesn't really talk about who his trainer is. But it says right here, he starts the day with a hot yoga workout to open up his muscles. Let's hold right there. Hot yoga. We know that we've been told as Christ followers that yoga actually is a spiritual practice of the Hindus, and that every pose is a pose, it is a stance in which you are worshiping a specific deity. Now, I do believe this because of, number one, the artwork of the Buddhists. However, God wants us to take care of our vessels. He wants us to be in shape, okay? It's this specific exercise that is not good because it is a combination of a spiritual and a physical practice. And if you are anything other than Buddhist, you probably shouldn't do it because you don't understand what each position represents. So let's say you're doing yoga and your eyes are shut, and in your mind you're meditating and they tell you to empty your mind. Let's say that some being comes up to you in your mind and you think it's your imagination, and it says, "Oh gee, well please, won't you just let me in and I can help you with this yoga and things will be so beautiful. Won't you just let me help you?" And, well, who are you? "Well, I'm just another part of you. Welcome me in." Are you going to say yes? How many people would say yes to that? Because I'm going to tell you something else. I sat and I was meditating one evening, and I knew that somebody in my house was paying attention to this. So I was sitting there and I tried desperately to empty my mind. Most people cannot do this, however, and that's a good thing. You don't want to empty your mind. But anyways, I wasn't really focusing on a question or a verse, and in my mind's eye, this female being came up to me talking about how it was the spirit of Mary Magdalene, and if I just let her in, that she would enlighten me. And I'm like, man, this ain't my imagination. I was like, no, you cannot come in. Get out. I do not consent. The loved one in my household, and I use that term loosely, at that point in time, tripped outside of the room that I was in because they were outside listening and monitoring me or whatever, and they tripped and they cussed and swore. Okay, what am I trying to tell you here? That's more than a coincidence. That's somebody very specific trying to hijack my mind because they thought I was vulnerable at that point in time. Don't ever let anything else in, ever. Now, why am I saying this? Because Jim Caviezel had a very hard time speaking the other day in his interview I saw with Jordan Maxwell. I've noticed it a couple of times now. And if he doesn't have someone sitting beside him, aka a handler, he doesn't seem to speak very well and he loses his train of thought. I know from experience, if he's doing yoga every single morning and he's starting to get a little arrogant and something asks to be let in, something ancient and old and maybe doesn't know our current way of speaking, so maybe they start to talk a little differently using aged and older and outdated phrases. Does that sound like anyone you know? Because that happened in my life with somebody. And that's one of the reasons I said, man, this person changed overnight. They don't even talk like they used to. They're using outdated phrases and words, and their speaking was really jilted. They didn't know maybe what to say most of the time. And at that point, and I've told you this a lot of times about my testimony, I think that a certain substance was brought into this at that time, number one, to lower my inhibitions because they wanted to get me with a demon. And I think that's happening all across America with drugs, with spiritual practices. I think that it is very intentional, not by everybody, but by a certain group of people. They are literally trying to get people with demons, or they are wanting to control people, and they are wanting to hijack their free will. Now, the Hopi prophecy goes along with Revelation. It says that beings will walk the earth in the end days that never should have been able to, that were never intended to walk the earth. That sounds strongly like demonic beings to me. Okay? Why am I saying all this? Because I don't trust what's happening right now. I really don't. I want to see trafficking ended more than most people. I don't trust this because right now, his, let's look at his wife a little bit. English teacher. They adopted 3 children from China. What is her background? I'd really like to know that. He still lives in Mount Vernon, Washington, they say. And that's what's weird, too. We have a Mount Vernon in Pittsburgh. We have a Pittsburgh in Pennsylvania on the East Coast. There's a Pittsburgh in California on the West Coast. What is going on here? Why do we have so many? And the East Coast shares a lot of names in common with Britain, which we know, the boats came over from there. But cities and things like that were planned and set up generically. There was a template for all of them, basically like a matrix. And I told you how this could play into agendas as well, especially things like the UFO agenda or even an agenda of war. During war times, they would use the tornado sirens, right, to, what were they called, bomb raids, to tell people when it was time to hide, basically to go in your storm cellars, get under your desk at school because you could be bombed at any moment. You have to have that fear factor right there all of the time to influence people and to manipulate their behaviors. That's the thing. I saw a meme yesterday, and I will share it if I can find it again. One of these elitists, one of these old white men from the old boys club was talking about how if the elite and ruling class wanted to keep enjoying their anonymity and their free lifestyles, if they wanted to be able to keep living in what they were accustomed to, that they had to keep us controlled and unaware of what was truly happening and going at each other and, dumb down. All of these things have been in plan for a long time. And I don't like how well this movie is doing suddenly. If it would have just stayed where it was, but it has grown. It is now over 100 million. What do I think's happening? I think it's a honeypot. Because the other day at work, somebody brought up Jim Caviezel, and I said, oh, yes, I really liked him in The Passion. He seems like a nice guy. Of course, I didn't get into anything else because it's not their business what I really think. And I'm not judging the man, not judging his spirit. I'm saying something changed, something is different, and we would be remiss and it would be folly to ignore it. There is something going on here. We have the same symbols with the blonde hair. He's always with a handler now. His speech is broken up. It seems like he's uncertain of what to say, doesn't know what to say. And it's very possible, yes, he could be a devoted and devout, true Catholic who actually keeps the tenets and the sacraments and all that. Again, I know how people feel about the Catholic Church. I'm not getting into that right now. I like the catechism and the doctrine. Most of it I agree with. But of course, there are pieces of it that I don't quite understand, like every religion. So it's very possible he's very devout. I'm not judging his spirit. I'm saying he is either being really manipulated at this time, or what we're seeing is a reverse honeypot. Now, how is that possible? What do I mean by that? Well, basically, they have a list, right, of everyone who voted for Trump. They know who voted for Trump. They want to know who buys into this theory. They want to know who buys into the QAnon cult. Okay, and I don't buy into that cult. There's a reason I don't. I think it's a reverse honeypot. I think they're going to use things like this and voting records to quote-unquote decide who's non-compliant. And I think if they do present us with quote-unquote villains, with bad guys who have perpetrated these crimes against children, I don't think it will be the right bad guys. I think it will be patsies, and it will probably be very old people who we never see anyways, who will be very easy to take away from the public eye, to remove from public life. I do not think it will be the true bad guys. I think those guys will still be hatching their plans and doing what they do behind the scenes. Only God's true justice will reach them when it is their time. And it will probably be very public. But I don't think it's going to be like this. I think this is a reverse honeypot. I think they will know everyone who has went to see it. I think they will know then who buys into this quote-unquote, their words, not mine, the QAnon conspiracy. And I think they will use that to either say, A, what is wrong with you that you believe things like that? You must be mentally defunct. We have to put you away, right? They'll say people like that are a danger because they believe things like that. And the reptilian thing, I think that's an agenda too. Why do I think that? Because it keeps getting pushed on me. I actually had people mad that I said I don't believe in reptilians. I've never seen them. I'm sorry. If I see one and I can touch one for myself, then maybe I'll believe in them. I definitely believe in other energies, in other entities, but until I see them or have an experience with them, I can't say either way whether they're real or not, and I don't want to. Again, I think it's an agenda. You have to really look at people's reactions to things. Why do they get so angry if you voice your opinion? Why do they get so angry if you disagree? Why do other people care so much what you or I believe in? Because they want us to be in agreement. They want it to be majority rules. And that doesn't apply if we don't participate by voting. Do you see what I'm saying? Now, here with this, if you participate, that means you're going to see the movie. You're giving money into this. So you're participating in it, which means you're in agreement with this. There's something wrong here. I do believe God lifts up people. I do believe in God's justice, God's true justice. I do believe people get what they put out eventually. But there's something wrong here with everything that's happening, and I think it's the Antichrist. I think the Antichrist is going to be highly involved in this. I think the Antichrist is going to help to rescue these children, or it will appear that this person helped to rescue the children. It's either the Antichrist or one of his 5 buddies, like I said before. And people will love him. And people like me, they will literally throw tomatoes at me. I will be like Christ. Pharisees pulled their hair out when Christ said certain things. Because they can't have that. They can't have anyone that'll go against the agenda. And they don't understand it. They don't understand when some of them literally don't understand different thinking than their own. And it drives them mad. Christ literally, his presence drove some people mad. That's how I feel like I am. Not to that extent, but I have the same type of effect on people. Because the Holy Spirit, I just speak without thinking about it when somebody asks me my opinion, and I probably give away too much. But that's how God made me, and I don't know that that's supposed to change. That's a childlike quality, and we're supposed to approach God as a child. Okay, so I think there's something very wrong with this. And I don't even know what it is. I'm trying to look at the picture and see what's bothering me so much about it. Because this is what I wanted, right? I wanted these bad guys put away. But I'm questioning things right now because of the changes I'm seeing in him as a person, in his interviews and stuff, and because of I know a part of Catholicism is obviously involved in this agenda. So parts of the church, every church, are involved in this. And it's distressing and disappointing because it just makes Christ look bad in the end. And that, that's not supposed to happen. That's supposed to be the reverse of that. We're supposed to be good reps. But I believe, yes, the Catholic Church in part, the patriarchy, not the flock. A part of the patriarchy is involved in this. The Mormon LDS Church, they have a big part in this. Because of the DNA, the genealogy, because BlackRock invested in companies like Moderna and Pfizer. That church really grew during the lockdowns, and it's building new temples everywhere, not just their little church buildings, but full-out temples like old Catholic churches. And now you have Catholics all over the place in TV working side by side with Mormons. And I'm going to be very specific here. The Bible tells us, do not accept any other gospel that someone may bring to your doorstep. I didn't know that. And I kept talking to these LDS girls and inviting them into my home. I probably should not have done that. It tells us right there, don't accept another gospel. And that's the problem, is they say it's another testament of Jesus Christ. Are they trying to say he already had the second return? I don't understand where they're going with this. But again, the alien agenda, all of this is tied together, all of it. And the Savior, whoever they present as the big Savior in this, and I don't mean just these 2 guys in the movies, I mean whoever's money is behind this. Now let's look at something. Let's look at something that he recently said. And if you haven't seen this, you need to see it now. So look, it's surpassed 100 million That wasn't supposed to happen. They said they were being suppressed and oppressed, right? Well, if they're so suppressed and oppressed, why did that happen? They'll say it was God. They'll say that God did it. Is that going to be true, though? Will that be true? Right there, actor Jim Caviezel proclaims Trump the new Moses after visiting him in Bedminster. What do you guys think of that? And again, we have to stop looking at men as saviors. If you're offended by this because of the things I've said about Trump and Caviezel, you're going to be swept away with this agenda. You're going to be a part of it. You're going to be a willing participant. There is something going on with this. Let's look at Tim Ballard. An American anti-human trafficking activist. Anti-human trafficking. He is the founder and former CEO of Operation Underground Railroad, former CEO of the Nazarene Fund, and the author of several books. And again, I'm not judging his character. I'm not judging him. But he kind of... Oh, where was he born? Where's he from? Utah. And he went where? Brigham Young. What does that mean? What is that? What church is he with? The LDS. And look, I was right. The LDS church. He went to Brigham Young, which is exclusively an LDS church. Okay? Graduating what? Summa cum laude. Okay? He has briefed politicians, including Donald Trump in January 2019. Okay? Ballard trained Imperial County Sheriff's Office personnel in the use of what? What is that? Data mining software that led to the arrest of a man suspected of distributing child porn. Hold. What does this mean here? Pay attention to that. Data mining. The problem with this, and again, nobody will ask this, the problem with this is you'll be able to frame anybody. I already saw it on Dateline. Well, her phone said she was here, so there's no way she could have murdered that person. What do you mean there's no way she could have murdered him? Her phone could have been in the car with somebody else while she went and did what she wanted to do without her phone. Why aren't people saying these things? Are we really that dumbed down now? Do we really think like this now? That the machines have to tell us how it is? Because they're flawed. You're seeing that, right? You can't. A machine can't reason things out. Ballard trained Imperial County Sheriff's Office personnel in the use of data mining. And why is all of this alien agenda stuff being brought to light by people either in the military, with military connections, or they are police or firefighters? And on Dateline too. The survivor, the one who survives, the loved one who's closest to the person who was murdered, the victim, who's usually the top suspect, they're always someone who's already involved in criminal justice, or that's the route that they take because they want justice after they experience that injustice. I don't think that's the reason at all. I don't think that's what's happening at all. I don't want to get into that right now, but you really have to start thinking in the reverse to see what's going on in this place. You have to retrain your brain, guys. And I'm not saying you have to. I mean, you should. Look at things, look at stories that they give you and flip them, invert them. And that is probably true. Practice doing this because it does take practice. But what have I said before? If a thing trends in this world, you should probably run in the other direction. Don't walk, run if something is trending, because that means there's something wrong with it. And I'm telling you right now, there is something wrong with this agenda because it's trending, because this guy has a background in the LDS church, and because a lot of the LDS, and I'm going to Google it and see if it, why are LDS rituals so like Masonic rituals? Okay, you see what I tried to type out there, sorry, fat fingers. Portions of the temple ritual resembled Masonic rites that Joseph had observed when a Nauvoo lodge was organized in March 1842, and that he may have heard about it from H0ney, a Mason from New York days. I got the ringing in my ears. The Nauvoo endowment was first bestowed just 6 weeks after Joseph's induction. Huh, wait a second. Oh, hold on. Hold on. This is right on, what website is this? churchofjesuschrist.org. And you know what's funny? When I asked the girls, I said, are you connected with the Freemasons? We've never heard of that. We don't know what you're talking about. Freemasonry is a fraternal organization that grew out of centuries-old European trade guides. Now, Joseph Smith's father was a Freemason, okay? A man named H0ney, whom Solomon commissioned to work on the temple in Jerusalem. During the reenactment, Mason advanced by degrees, using hand grips, keywords, and special clothing. In Masonic rituals, Masons commit to be worthy of trust and be loyal to who? Their Masonic brothers. They can trust each other. What about the rest of us? This is why secrets are kind of bad. I do believe that certain people aren't ready for certain information, and that's why Christ spoke in parables. But when you try to keep information from somebody and you keep it a secret, again, you have that law of resistance there. Trying to keep a secret does not do any good. Okay? It produces the opposite effect of what you want it to promote. In addition, participating in these rituals, Masons meet socially, participate in community building, So let's see, where did they start? Oh, wait a second. Joseph Smith joined the fraternity when? In March 1842. Huh. Wow, the earliest records tell the story of Masonry originating during Old Testaments. So this tells you right here, and Solomon allegedly was a Mason. So are these guys good or bad? Again, I'm not here to say that. I don't make blanket statements about any individual group. I just noticed that they look the same and that the rituals look the same, and I wanted to know why they were so similar. But apparently it is something they openly promote. And I was unaware of this. I didn't know this. I just saw some people that were promoting their secret rituals on YouTube, and I said, wait a second. That's a Masonic call, and that's... The rapid growth made many Masons suspicions that Mormons would dominate the organization in Illinois. So you see, every church has these people in it. It's allegedly it started out as an elite religious order, right? Fraternity. Well, what do I think of it now? Personally, again, I'm not going to speak bad against it outright or good. I'm going to say it is up to each individual and their personal intent. The problem is when you get a group of people who think they know what's best for everyone, pride gets in the way, their own pride at thinking they know what's best for other people, and that's never a good thing. This is why I don't tell you openly what to do. I tell you what I've done, what I'm seeing, what works for me, but that might not be true for you. And I'm not going to say just because you choose a different way that you're demonized. Although at this point, I think it's pretty obvious that many people are demonized. People who participated in things they should not have participated in and have not confessed and repented. Confession unburdens the soul. That's why the truth sets you free from the shackles that bind you spiritually. For example, if you are promiscuous, if you are doing substances along with that, you are opening your mind, lowering your inhibitions, and then you're getting soul ties, you're getting these connections to people, especially if you're doing this in group settings, which is rumored to be happening. These things are not good for us as individuals, and they're not good for society. Again, I can't tell you what to do with your free will, but I can tell you I've seen the effects of all of these things, and it's not good. When God gives you the vision to see people's spiritual condition, it's only a blessing if you share it with other people. But for that person, for that individual who's seeing that degradation happen, especially to their own loved ones, it's detestable. I don't like seeing it. I don't want to know what my loved ones have done. I don't want to look at my children and just know what's happened to them or what they've done. But that's how I see now. And we are dirty. Something is wrong here, folks, and I'm all for traffickers being in trouble and jailed. I would love nothing better, but I think the problem here is they're going to give you a red herring. There's another word for this, but they're going to hold someone else up as the villain, okay? And the real bad guys, the ones who are actually doing these things and committing these atrocities, the only way they'll be seen is if God does it and makes them seen. And now the supernatural element of this, I do believe they're hiding things. I read, and I've showed you this in videos, I can dig it up again for you if you like, I saved the information, long time ago, that a church that I love very much colluded with their opposition, with a Jewish organization, and they covered up ancient cannibalism that was occurring. Now, some of that's coming out in Canada, but they're never going to tell you who is actually doing that cannibalizing. Again, they're going to hold up people as villains who are either no longer here, or who are so old that punishment doesn't matter, or who want to be removed from public life anyway. People who are quote unquote retiring from the industry will be villainized for this, and someone else will take their place. That's the Masonic way too. Getting rid of an entire generation of leaders and instilling people that you've already prepared for these roles. That's what's going to happen. They're going to remove a bunch of people from the top all at one time so that our whole system has to be recalibrated. We won't have a choice. But that's what's going to happen. And usually God gives the information that I bring is true. It ends up happening. And I'm not bragging. I don't like that this is happening. It's given me severe physical ailments. It's made me open to all kinds of crazy attacks from my own community. I don't think they know what they do. I forgive the people. But I can tell when the spirit is speaking from them because it's always the same being. It always has the same gritty, dirty feel to it, and it always says the same things. So some of us right now who are receiving this opposition, we must do something that matters in the future, or we wouldn't be receiving this opposition. And I want to encourage you with that. Use this towards your betterment, towards your refinement. Start praying, start true meditation. Don't empty your mind. Sit and ask God a question, and it will be answered. The answer will be given to you. And then share that with others. Let us spread the true message of the gospel, which is love and forgiveness and resurrection, redemption for anyone and everyone. All who call upon the Lord shall be saved. We have to remember that. But we must be wise, guys. Do not let your emotions carry you away. The Antichrist will be one of these people responsible for bringing these quote-unquote bad guys down. And it's all going to be a show. And it's all still part of Operation Gotham. They're going to give us a hero. God's going to give us the leaders we deserve. And I pray enough people have repented of wickedness. And again, I'm not judging you. I'm not judging you. I was a part of it for a long time. I didn't realize it. I wasn't doing sacrifices and all that, right? But I was pushing agendas without even knowing it. Because I was blind and I was deaf. And I was just an NPC going along with the flow. But that's not good for anyone. Row, row, row your boat gently down the stream. That doesn't even make sense. Why would you row downstream? You're wasting energy. Don't waste your precious light. Use it towards discernment and refinement and sharing it with others. Pass along that light that you have, like a candle. That's what we're supposed to be doing. But do not be led by your emotions. There's something wrong with all of this. Especially the way they're encouraging people to see it. And they were telling us to stay away from this stuff. And finally, I'm going to tell you in my own personal testimony, everyone that approached me about baby harmers, child harmers, and I hope you know what I mean. Everyone that approached me about this, number one, tried to make it personal and claimed that one of my very close loved ones had this done to them. I'm not saying if that's true or not. That's their story to share, not mine. It's not my business to share or put out there. That's why I don't do names or any of that stuff. I try to keep it as classy as possible when you're dealing with these dirty, grim topics. But all of the people who told me about baby harmers and child harmers and to be careful that they're out there, they'll get you, they'll get your children. Everyone who brought this to my awareness was a wicked one. They were on the other side. How do I know they're on the other side? Because of the fruit that they bear, guys. Because of their fruit. Because they did outright deny Christ. And because they don't bear good fruit. All the fruit they bear is spoiled and rotten. Look at their lives. Every person who has ever tried to bring this to my awareness has been wicked. So it really makes me wonder, is this the grand deception? Is this the lie that everyone believes, that God actually allows babies to be hurt like that in this world? Because honestly, for a long time, I didn't even think it was possible. I'm like, that's not physically possible, number one. Number two, I don't think God would allow for that. That everyone has a guardian angel. I mean, there are strange and awful things that happen to people, don't get me wrong, but usually in some manner they consent to it, right? It's built off of consent. When things happen to babies or children, it's hard to understand. And I know the psychiatric industry is involved in this because when I had lost time, it was in that office. I was sitting in that office when it happened. There's something very nefarious going on here, guys. Do not be carried away by your emotions because we all love children. And I'm not saying there aren't bad guys out there. I'm saying the bad guys might just not be who they say they are, and they might not be doing exactly what we're told they are. It might just be to lower our frequency so that we think something like that actually occurs because it's disgusting. And it brings us down to a really lower, your frequency is lower then. You're not vibrating as high when you're thinking of things like this all the time. And I'm just so you're aware, the people who are doing it, I'm not watching any more of those videos. By that Occult Science 101. Again, he flat out tells you, I'm a Jew. I hate Jews. Okay, right there's something wrong with you. Something's wrong. And all he ever talks about is baby harmers. This color means this color means that. So who's the one in the wrong, really? The one seeing everything from that eye of darkness? I'm sorry, but God made colors and numbers and symbols first, and they're beautiful. Our world is orderly and symmetric, and it's beautiful. And I heard somebody else, I have to say this before I go. There is a hierarchy, and even the demons have a hierarchy to follow. That's why they're legalists. All demons are legalists. They cannot go out of their assigned lane. Remember, we talked about this in regards to a spider web. People like us who have free will, we can walk in between the spider web, we can hop, we can navigate however we choose. Now, it might lead to bad or negative things or dark things, but that's our free will, right? These beings, these demonic, dark beings, they have to stay in their lane. And they are still controlled by God because God is at the top of every hierarchy. But the demons, the lower level demons, they have their own hierarchy that they must follow. Okay? I heard somebody saying the other day that demons are chaos and that they don't have any legal rights here. Well, that's a half-truth. Yes, they do promote chaos, and usually that chaos leads to God's order. God is orderly. This is an orderly system. There's a reason for everything, and even the waste that the demons put off is not put to waste. God uses it and turns it to good. This is a self-sustaining environment that we have here, and it's beautiful if you can actually see the whole plan unfold in front of you. But it loses that beauty when you think of things like child harmers and trafficking. And we have to wonder, is God actually allowing this, or is it something, yet again, that the screen is telling us is happening just to make us doubt God and His goodness? I'm telling you guys, there's something not right about all of this. Especially when the TV screens tell us that it's black and white and that this is the good guy and this is the bad guy. Oftentimes, it's the reverse of what they're saying. The bad guy is the good guy. And I'll give you one last personal example. I tried for a long time to reach shelters to get out of the situation that I am in, because I know what they're doing to homeless people too. I know that that's an agenda as well, cleaning up the streets. It's how they're going to quote unquote clean them up. That is debate. That is wrong. They're just going to end people. And this is all leading to genocide. And I'm very disturbed that nobody else can see what's happening. But again, we have to consent to it because these things are all demonically led and they do have to follow their hierarchy. Now, do they have legal rights here? Only if we give it to them. And that's been the problem all along, is we have not kicked Satan out of the garden yet. That's all God's waiting on. This is our dwelling place. He made this place for us. He came down every evening to walk with Adam in the garden. Adam didn't go up to be with God. God came down to walk with Adam. But still, they could walk side by side in some way before the fall. God's light did not make him perish. Sometimes you can give them legal rights and bad things can happen, like what happened in my story. But if you learn about consent and you declare your free will and you become the driver in the seat and God is at your helm, things start to correct themselves, praise God. And you can see better and things start to become clearer. Sometimes it's not so easy to see who is the good guy and who is the bad guy. Sometimes you don't even know what team you're on because of how people are all dressed and looking on the outside like they are the same. But I'm telling you that they are not the same, that they are different, and that they are legalists, and that usually that is demonically led. Please be careful. Please keep your eyes wide open. If the comments aren't working, I apologize for that. Again, I'm not disparaging any group as a whole. I'm saying we've got a problem here, and we cannot be led by our emotions. Do not lose control of your emotions. Somebody told me that once, another gaslighter gang stalker online, that I said, sure, I'll talk to you for a few minutes. Because again, I wanted to witness to this person about the true good news. And these people think they're so bright. And he said, I think what they're afraid of is our emotions. They don't like it when we lose control of our emotions. It scares them. And that's what the reptilians dislike the most, is confrontation. They want us to act up in a public way so that they can point a finger and say, see, there's something wrong with all these people. There's something wrong with all these Christ followers. There's something wrong with all these people who vote red, blue, purple, black, whatever. There's something wrong with all these people who eat chicken. There's something wrong with all these people who eat vegetarian. Do you see where I'm going with this? They can make anyone into the villain or into the hero. And most people will go along with that. I'm telling you, don't go along with something. Don't blindly follow something just because you're told it's the right way. Be careful. You know why I followed Christ? Because it made sense. It's not blind faith. It really isn't. I have blind faith in the resurrection. I've never seen it, but I believe it. Because I've found the other things that Christ said to be true. The Antichrist is going to be very charming and very persuasive, and most professing Christians will go along with this Antichrist person. Again, he's going to seem wonderful. His cure for getting rid of people will be humane. We can't let these people go on. Look how mentally distraught they are. They can't even make their own decisions. We can't let this person live like this. They can't enjoy living on the street in a tent, in a field in a tent, same pair of pants, same pair of shoes, no brand names, no phone, no electronics. How can we let them live like that? The humane thing to do would be to just let them drink something and go to sleep. And most people will go along with this. This is where we are at. But you'll forget it. You'll forget about this conversation in 5 minutes. When I'm done talking, you'll go about your day because you are in the sun and in the light, and you won't think about those who are left behind in the darkness. Well, again, I say we are responsible for our own selves, but we are also responsible for those that we lead astray or for those who depend on us, and we don't do what we are obligated to do by them. It's definitely a good thing to get traffickers behind bars. But are they actually behind bars? We don't know that. We don't know what happens. And is it actually the traffickers that we're putting in jail? Or are they just patsies? Much like Lee Harvey Oswald was a patsy, and most people know this and are very well aware of this. And most people won't say what's pretty obvious. Whoever did that deed was probably in the car with him, I would assume. But nobody ever says that. That's too easy of an explanation. Occam's razor. We got to start thinking for ourselves and quit listening to what the news tells us. Turn the news down. Just watch the pictures that they show and see at the end if what you see is what they're telling you should see. Sharpen your discernment. Watch Dateline. It's on Tubi. There's a Dateline channel. Watch how many things, number one, they're putting out fake stories because they keep regurgitating the same story with different actors. And then they use the same actors in different stories. It's all agenda. They want you believing DNA is correct and never lies and is never wrong and never makes a mistake. Well, what about the man processing that DNA test? Could he mislabel it? Could he label the wrong one? Could he set down the tube without labeling it, grab a bite of a sandwich, and then forget which label he's supposed to put on there? No, you can't. You're not allowed to think that people could possibly make an error. Why doesn't anyone apologize anymore for small mistakes? Do you see where I'm going with this? This is a problem. This will be problematic in these big issues that are coming up. Please ask yourselves these questions and ask yourself why they're showing you villains at this time and why suddenly now they're caught in all these. Is it God? They'll want you to think it is. They will want you to believe that this is all God's doing. But again, that's how the Antichrist will operate, and it will look very good on paper. But is genocide Christ's way? Was that his way? Is that really humane? Is it Christ's way to divide people in this way? Christ didn't purposely divide people. His message divided people because most people don't want to speak the truth. They want to keep getting their little electronic toys. They don't want to think about the slavery that's created in the making of those toys and those objects. They'll keep buying the shoes that are made overseas by the children who shouldn't even be working the long hours they're working, who barely get to eat. We don't think about this in America, and we should think about these things. We should be very conscientious buyers, consumers, parents, children, and neighbors. This has been long enough. I hope I've given you things to think about. There will be another one coming on masks. It will be kind of fun, but we're going to take on another angle that we haven't looked at before on this channel, and I've not seen a lot talked about on other channels regarding this aspect of the masking. So watch for that. I love you guys, and please do comment your thoughts below. Let us know what you're thinking. How are you receiving information today, and how do you process it? Meaning, do you automatically believe it's truth? Do you question it? Do you investigate and do your own research? And can we trust the research that we find on Google? I'm sorry. Hello. For I am come to set a man against the father, yes. And yes, I understand that, but he doesn't do it purposely. You have to understand, it's the message of Christ. What is the sword of the Spirit? It's not a literal sword. It's not a carnal sword. We've talked about this before, and it's okay if we have a difference of opinion. It doesn't bother me. Maybe my opinion will change in a day or two or a year. I don't know what God is going to reveal to me. I know that Christ does divide people. He's divided me amongst my own home. Nobody knows that more than TIs, real TIs, like me and hopefully Mr. Dixon. But he doesn't do it purposely, right? Christ, right. God wants us to love our families. God gives us our families, just like he gave Job a second family to replace the first horrible one that he lost, right? Job was so faithful, God gave him another new family. God wants us to love our families. We're supposed to love our families. There's nothing but information in the scriptures about how to interact with our loved ones and our families and our neighbors. And we're supposed to love our families and our neighbors. But just because you love someone doesn't mean you have to agree with them. And just because you love someone doesn't mean you have to be near them. I can love my family, but move afar from them because I don't want involved in their daily activities because I don't spiritually agree with them. It doesn't resonate with me, right? So Jesus doesn't actually do that purposely. The sword of the Spirit is our tongue. And when our tongue speaks truth, a lot of people won't like that. The majority of people, why does it set a father against the son and a mother against a mother-in-law and a wife against a husband? Because 3 out of 4 people live the lie and love the lie. It's that one person, the black sheep, the scapegoat, who is me, Mr. Dixon. Who else watches the channel that's like that? I don't want to put words in people's mouths, but it's a lot of you that I've spoken with, right? So Christ doesn't do it purposely. And my belief is that we will all be brought together in the end. Because God's wish, God's will is that none shall perish, not one. That even that lost sheep, he shall go after that lost sheep because it is lost. He is not worried about the 99 who aren't lost. They're where they need to be. So he goes after that one lost sheep. I believe that this will all sort itself out. I believe we will get to live in harmony with one another and our loved ones if that's what they choose. Oh, it's very hard, and I'm sorry that you're going through it, and I'm sorry that I'm going through it. I was thinking of you last night because I fell asleep to Fallen. It's free on Tubi, and for the longest time, you couldn't get to see it free. So I started watching it, and I always say for research purposes in case I notice something new in it. But yes, it's very hard when you're alone, because even if you're in a house full of people or a room full of people, you're still alone in your presence and in your spiritual authority, because very few people realize that they are autonomous beings, that they are free-willed, that they do have sovereignty over themselves, and they don't have to do what others say. How many times does a politician actually walk through your door and tell you how to live? So why are you so emotionally invested in that politician? Why do you think they want you so emotionally invested? Because you're easier to control when you're either A, in fear, B, in a place of hate, in a place of confusion. And what are all these things? It's when you're not in control of your emotions. A fruit of the Holy Spirit, one of the proofs that I call them proofs, if you want to talk scientifically, because I do believe science, true science and true faith absolutely go together. Not pseudoscience, not the religion of scientism, just because they say it, I believe it, not that. I'm talking about true, repeatable, provable science, which is God's fingerings, God's workings in our daily life. We can't see his hand, right? But we can see the workings of his hand. We can't see the wind, but we can see the effects of the wind. We can't see electricity, how it works, but we see the light that it brings. Do you see what I'm saying? We might not see God, but his plan is always in action. He is always working. He's always there with us. And it's tough when you're alone. And it's tough being that one. 1 out of 4 people. Right now, it's probably 1 out of 20, to be honest with you. That's why there's one in every family, usually a scapegoat, but not in every household. There's not a believer in every household. There used to be, I think, but there isn't anymore. And most of the houses, if you pay attention, most houses are empty these days. Ask yourself what's going on. Where are the proofs for your faith or for what you believe? Because there are breadcrumbs to everything, no matter what. If it's true, you will find the proofs for it. All right, guys, I'm going to let you go because I want other people to watch this video, and I need to do a little research for the hat video or the mask video, the hat video, and we're going to touch base with this again, with this trafficking. But I think I proved we need to pay attention because we got a lot of Catholics working side by side with Mormons. Now, Muslims, I'm not seeing as much in the picture, but I'm seeing a lot of the Catholics with the Mormons, and some of that is also the rainbow community. So we've got to pay attention to this and what is going to go on. They're going to say that's going to be the one world, one religion of love, and people like us who are still holding true to tradition, some traditional tenets, they're going to say we should go to an asylum, and I have no doubt they're going to start reopening them soon, or that the reason they emptied the jails is to put all of us in it. Which honestly, if we're all together, I really won't personally care. It won't bother me. I'm already alone as it is, so even if they put me in there with a bunch of non-believers, at least I'll have people to witness to. Anyways, I'll let you go. You guys have a great Monday. We'll talk soon again. And as always, please comment and leave your thoughts on the video. I'll go open up comments now. For whatever reason, they usually have the video as private and comments as off until you go change it. So I'll go do that now. I love you guys. More soon. Bye.